I'm standing away from the speakers here. He had a microbrewery come to the village, and obviously in this village we have Sweet Jenny's. Those are companies that make something on site and then sell to retail elsewhere, which in our current mixed-use zoning we didn't need to preclude. However, it was just kind of accidentally something that we omitted. So this change in our mixed-use district would make it possible or make an authorized use for somebody connected to retail, like maybe an artisan that produces and sells in the same location, to do that without worrying about being non-compliant. So with that, is there any comments from the public this evening? Okay. Oh, Bill?
I guess I'd be a little concerned if there's maybe some definition. I don't think, are there further definitions in the code as to what constitutes manufacturing besides?
Well, the way it's defined, proposed definition here is manufacturing use involving small-scale production or assembly of food or beverage products connected at any rate, conducted in connection with on-site retail sales and/or restaurant use. Manufacturing components of which shall not exceed X square feet or X percent of the total building square footage, whichever is less. May not generate noxious byproducts from employed processes or equipment that create noise, heat, glare, dust, smoke, fumes, odors, or vibration, technical off property, deliveries or pickups in connection with such uses are limited to parcel or small freight carrier. So that
Fine.
we have to meet that definition.
Okay.
I think that is good.
All right, thank you. Are there any further comments on the question? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move to close the public hearing at this time. All in favor? The next item on our agenda is a public hearing. I would move to open a public hearing for proposed use of the 2013-2014 Community Block Grant Funds.
Second.
All in favor? And I'd ask Administrator Yule please read the notice of public hearing.
Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Village Board of Trustees on Monday, November 25th, 2013, at 7:30 p.m. at Village Hall, 5565 Main Street, Williamsville, New York, for the purpose of hearing all persons interested in discussing the proposed use of the 2014 Community Development Block Grant Funds, and that was also published November 6th, 2013 in the Amherst League.
Okay, so the community block grant funding is funding made available. It can be spent in certain census tracts if your census tract falls below the federal housing authorities guidelines for poverty, or it's based on, I think, median family household income. In any case, we no longer have any census tracts specific to the village that meet those requirements. So what we've been doing over the past few years is allocating a portion of it to an assistance program that can actually float loans to people who are in need of help and assistance to do home maintenance and upkeep. And a portion of it can then be used for village projects. Most of them have to do with park accessibility, historic preservation. Those are the sort of big ones. In the past, we've done South Long's trails with that type of funding. We've done some work at the mill with that type of funding. In this year, we're going to propose to use that funding not on the mill itself, but on that red building that really has never received kind of a dime or an ounce of attention next to them. It's historic to the parcel. It is part of the national landmark, and it is in need of separation. If you can picture the little front addition to that building with the fireplace and the chimney, that is the historic mill office, and it was out in the center of the parcel. And in all of the plans the village has had, and I'll show you some later, that was separated, and we said we were going to do something with that, make a pavilion, a permanent pavilion for the farmers market. Maybe they could release a couple of their tents and business association, the farmers market could be there, it's sort of centered right about where those tents fall, or something along those lines. So we're gonna look to use this year's community block grant funding to do some rehab on that building. So are there any comments this evening on the allocation of block grant funding? Seeing none, I will move to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the next item on the agenda this evening is really the suspension of rules for public participation. What we've decided to do is we're going to give the presentation and then kind of open it up for a dialogue and question and some give and take with the trustees after I've had my chance to weigh in. Okay, so this year's State of the Village, if you will. This is the second year we've done this, and we thought it was important that we kind of come back at the end of the calendar year and explain to everybody where we've been, what we've been doing, what we've been working on, and where we're going ultimately. And it's a good chance for people to kind of catch up. 12-month cycles are a long cycle, and there's a lot of activity here. And so with that, this is the direction the village is headed. First, I want to start off by talking about a word that's been bantered about a lot over the past 6 months through local campaigns, and it's smart growth. And the term smart growth to me is a very important term. As an urban planner, it's something that I respect a lot. Smart growth is sort of the embodiment of what a village like Williamsville is. There's a couple of major tenets, but every time we talk about smart growth in Williamsville, we talk about two things: creating lasting value and basing it on a clear village vision, and a clear vision for what smart growth is. So we thought we'd kind of retake that word a little bit and remind everybody of how we've come to make decisions in the village. So with that, there's an interesting sort of set of tenets that are related to smart growth, and I'm going to be quick going through these. But they have to do with creating a mix of land use, right? So that we're not just talking about creating commercial districts, and we're not just talking about creating residential districts. We're talking about the interplay between residential and commercial, between office and retail. The second one is creating a dense building design. Now, that doesn't have to mean that we're creating downtown Buffalo out here in Williamsville. What it means is that we have to have some kind of sense of density, bringing people to the street, creating areas that people can walk to retail, can walk to their office, and frequent a small, tight-knit neighborhood. Next is create a range of housing opportunities and choices. And this is something that specifically in the Village of Williamsville, we've spent a lot of time in our community plan and have started to spend a lot of time in our zoning trying to address. We know we have generational issues, we know we have social issues, and we need to be able to leave and depart from single-family detached as our only building methodology and start to create some kind of new housing type that will let seniors age in place and that will attract our young people, our Generation Y, to stay here instead of finding that loft apartment downtown. Next, we want to create walkable neighborhoods. We want to attract communities with a strong sense of place. So we want this Williamsville to have a certain cachet, brand, and identifiable meaning to it. Next, we've got preserve open space, and that has a lot to do with how we treat our parks in this case. It can, in some cases, mean how we treat rural lands. In the village, it's really our parks and our recreational areas. Next is strengthening our existing communities. So it's not leaving the village and finding new green space, it's encouraging redevelopment in the village core. transportation choices and offering a variety, making predictable, fair, and cost-effective to development, right? It's not just about the residents in the community, it's also about the future development, and it's about people making smart investment decisions in your community because you've treated them fairly and given them some opportunity. And then finally, encouraging community and stakeholder collaboration. This is going to be kind of underlying theme to what I'm going to talk about tonight. We have in the Village of Williamsville kind of looked at, is there an actual manual for this? Yeah, there is. And Andreas Dwani and Mike Lyden are people who I've had the opportunity to hear speak. They're going to be in Buffalo in June. And I encourage people to attend something called Congress for Urbanism, which is coming. But in the village, we look at it, we need to create a proactive government in order to accomplish a lot of these goals. And we're calling that right now Government 2.0. You probably hear that kicked around. What it really means is, hey, we've got this great plan. We think it's a great plan. We think that it accomplishes a lot of what we talk about when we talk about smart growth. And it's got a great vision. So we're implementing that. And if for nothing else, we're going to be different because we're actually going to implement our plan. And along the way, we have to make good decisions. So one of the big decisions we've been making is the idea that we're going to downsize our government. We're going to consolidate out our water department. That was a difficult decision, and it's taken a lot of work to get to certain points. And it's asked the residents, it's asked everybody here to kind of go along with us down this path. And the reason why it's important is because right now we're paying $5.37 per 1,000 gallons. We're going to end up paying $5.81. That's the way we're heading this year. And if we didn't consolidate, that $5.81 would be a drop in the bucket. We'd be continuing down this path and be paying over $6 soon. The county's paying $3 per 1,000 gallons. So we've got this incredible difference, and it's a burden on our businesses, it's a burden on our residents, and it's something that we realize as village government, but just sustaining it for the sake of sustaining government doesn't make any sense. So we're getting out of it. Last year we said we need to get out of it. This year we are getting out of it. And we're going to get out of it by spring of 2014. That's where we're heading. It's our commitment. We've been committed to that. As most of you may know, meter change outs have been happening. Some more pleasant experiences than others. I know there have been a couple of hiccups along the way. But it's an important piece to us right now because it's going to help us right-size the government and make us more sustainable for the long term. We're trying to switch, and we've been working hard over the past year to switch the way we talk about the budgeting process. For anybody who's ever had the exciting moment of sitting through a village line item budget when we prepare them annually, it's not something that our village does a good job. Our administrator is one of the best administrators, if not the best administrator in Western New York. And she's able to break it down in ways that make sense that you can convey publicly. But when you just look at the totality of the budget, it's not extremely transparent. It may be transparent, but it's not. It's encrypted. There's some kind of code to it, and that's the nature of business. So we're trying to get into a very much performance-based budget that can easily be definable in unit costs per service. So you can look and see what does it take us to maintain our roads, and be able to compare that to what does it take the town of Amherst, or what does it take the town of Chickawaga. And then we want to make sure that our budget is based on performance, right? That we're based on quality and efficiency in our delivery systems. So this year, we've changed the way we worked interdepartmentally. Our departments couldn't come to us with, well, we're going to start at a high budget and then try to negotiate to some midpoint. We said, here's your number. This is where you need to come in. Look at your department and figure out how you get to that number. And some cases it was smoother than others. At the end of the day, we turned in a budget that we were pretty proud of. We're also going paperless. So this is a big deal, and I have Trustee Yates to thank primarily for this. Some of us more than others. But we feel that, look, a paperless village hall, paperless meetings, that's how we have to get to that point. Like every business, we're paying a fortune just to create documents, recreate documents, store documents, save documents, use documents. And so we're committed to this. We're committed to this as a philosophy, and we're working on implementing that change. And we're working on communications and branding. And one of the bigger things that we took on this year is we hired Charlie Speck in the position of Director of Community Development. And we said, look, for years, in my tenure in this board, we've acknowledged that we have a really lousy website. And then we do a bad job, it's not a bad job. Picture Main Street is actually a good website. But we do a bad job interrelating all of our social media and our website and our message. And we have to do something to say, look, if the government needs to behave a little bit more like a business, one of the places that makes the most sense is in the way we communicate with our users, our residents, the way we communicate with the media, the way we communicate internally, the way we communicate with higher elected officials, because this stuff just isn't cutting it. It's not accessible. It's not delivering what we're preaching. And when we say we want to be transparent and accessible, we have to make sure that we're doing a good job of conveying that. So we've committed to it. We've committed to it internally in terms of staff, and we're committing to getting our website going, to bringing it up to par with what we have in the Picture Main Street website. And then finally, where were we tax-wise? That's a big question. If we go all the way back to April and May when we were doing our public hearings on this, this is a long time since then. So I want to remind everybody of where we were and how we got to where we were. Last year, the 2013-2014 budget that we're currently in, we saw a 1.9% increase in the tax rate. And we had an entire 2.19% increase in our tax levy. To give you an idea of how a lot of our costs kind of came about, our New York State retirement costs rose 15.54% this year. That's a growth on top of a growth of 28.31% the year before. So you hear a lot about state mandates, and you hear a lot about state pass-through, and this is one of the biggest things right now with our Association of Mayors throughout the state, is trying to curtail the expenditures on our New York State retirement program. The property tax cap law would have allowed us a growth of up to 3.25%. Obviously, we're not interested in jumping up that high. Really, we're just trying to cover the cost of doing business and the cost of business increases. So we didn't pass a local law to exceed the tax cap. But one scenario that I want to bring up, because it's a big deal, is that there is a possibility in 2014-2015 that we're going to be looking at a scenario where we may have to break that tax cap. This village board is not afraid of the tax cap like some communities are. We've embraced it. We said, of course, we should always try to stay below the tax cap. But there's a provision in the tax cap if you want to consolidate a government, and that provision does not apply to if you consolidate a department. So we did what we have to do and consolidate our water department to create savings for our users. In doing so, we have to switch some of our expenses from a fee-based water department over to a tax-based general fund. And so what that means is part of our administrators' costs, part of our public works, equipment costs that get charged off to water currently and that you pay for through your water rate will now have to get funded through your tax rate. And so we did, the initial bits. Well, you need to create some savings, okay? We cut our water position right out of the gate. That was one of the immediate things that we said we were gonna commit to. But even in doing stuff like that, you're still gonna commute a certain amount of that cost. So we're hoping that our local delegation is gonna work with us. The governor's office has told us there's a local fix, which is, you know, Senator Rasenhofer and Assemblyman Walter need to bring a bill to their respective houses and say, we need a 1-year exemption for the Village of Williamsville to get an offset for those costs. And it sounds simple, you know, just bring it through the system. It doesn't create a fix for other communities that want to be incentivized to go into consolidation for their services. We hope that it would be a little bit more broad brush of an approach, but we're hoping for at least for local exemption. So with that, now that I've gone into budgetary processes, I could only think of Trustee Delano's constant reminder to me that we may be getting off on topic here. And I want to return back a little bit more directly to smart growth and how we've been treating this year and how we're getting to where we're going. So the first 3 items, mixed land use, dense building design, and range of housing. Those are all items that we've already addressed. Good news. We addressed these a couple of years ago when we started creating a mixed-use district down Main Street. And for those of you who don't remember, we basically wiped out, 4 or 5 separate zoning districts on Main Street that would have seen residential separated from retail, separated from different style residential. And we said, look, in one lump sum, we're going to create a mixed-use district down Main Street. And we're going to make it multi-story and 0 setback, allowing 20-foot setbacks if you are going to do, you know, sort of outdoor cafe, outdoor patio, public space. And we made it graphic-based. It's not a pure form-based code, but it's a hybrid code. It basically says, look, this is not what we want, this is what we want. And it talks about building a village based on some density on our main street that's multi-story and mixed use in those buildings. And the reason that those are important items to us, if you look at Main Street right now, the most memorable buildings, and I can almost guarantee, with the exception of maybe 1, maybe 2 buildings on our Main Street, the most memorable buildings are mixed story. Chances are they are mixed use. Right? There are 2 former auto dealerships down the street that are single-story buildings that you could say, wow, that's a really memorable building. That's a building that I want to define as a place that I live. Aside from that, everything here is a certain density, and that's because that's what makes a village, having people live and work and play right on your main street. So those are important items to us. When we do that, we of course don't want to intrude on our residential areas. So we've intentionally included setbacks off of the residential. You know, we've intentionally included building clusters, rain garden provisions. This is the type of building that we want in the village. This is what makes our main street what it is. This is what makes it alive. The next one, walkable neighborhoods. Obviously, and attractive communities and a strong sense of place are items that we've spent an enormous amount of time over the past 1.5 years, 2 years, working on through the Picture Main Street project. It's a big project, and I'm not going to try to recap the project. But quickly, we all know what our Route 5 is, and it is unbearable at times. But I feel like the conversation is shifting from this area with all the cars to this area with all the residential, or with all the pedestrians, and I'll get to that in a second. So we've got a number of implementation strategies, things that we want to implement here. We don't think we're going to change, and we don't intend to change the volume of transportation on Main Street. What we intend to change are the ways pedestrians access the street through things like curb extensions, through creating gateways that give you a sense of defined place, by creating curb extensions at different intersections that allow people to not only cross safer, but take away illegal right-hand turns out of parking lanes. Not median work, but painted center lanes so people know it's not okay to drive down the center of the street. That's not what it's for. intent is to make these crossings, 20 feet less, make it so that a pedestrian has a shot, give them a better vantage point. Do things like increase the pedestrian safety crossing Main Street with the Hawk Center. And this is still very much part of the plan out in front of the library here in the municipal complex. And this is kind of a sketch of where we think it would fall. So you can picture this being the library down here. Of course, the pocket park, which is met with a little bit of reaction. What are you guys doing there? What's happening? Right now, you see a temporary pocket park. We've tried some things out, see what works, what doesn't work. The intent of the pocket park is to create a safe pedestrian access point, but also to give people a respite from Main Street. So you can stop into the park and have your conversation that's too loud on Main to have. Stop into the park and take advantage of the library's Wi-Fi and maybe play a game of chess, maybe sit down and read a book. And to build out that pocket park, we've tried some stuff, and we think we're going to carry on doing these pergolas, right? This idea of creating some top shelter. Obviously, wood paths don't work. We are going to commit to doing a concrete or paver pathway through there next year in the spring. We tried the mill wheel out because we like the idea of having a defining feature in the front of the park. So we're going to not use our mill wheel per se, because it has to get back down to the mill at some point, but we're going to recreate that same idea and give people sort of a vantage point, something to look at the head end of this thing. And, moving down the street, we want to treat the intersections more like a true village intersection, someplace that people aren't afraid to stand and congregate for a moment or wait for a bus, give them a little bit of depth. The Evans Triangle, again, this is one of those, what are you guys doing here moments. So with the Evans Triangle, what we did was we took and created our 1812 memorial, right? And we're still waiting for a lot of the vegetation to fill in. We were waiting for a while to get colored, and there's some young trees. Those trees are lace bark elms. They're going to grow, it's going to be a great canopy. The wood hewn benches. This is a moment where the village said, look, we have to recognize 1812 somewhere. 1813 and 1814 were enormous years. They basically launched this village. We were a military outpost. And so trying to give some tribute to that at the same time, doing stuff with volunteers and getting volunteers out there planting. That's what we wanted to see in a village. This is what is amazing about this place is that, time and time again, when we want to do something, we just have to ask and people come running and then maintain those places. This is, at some point, we're going to try to get a cannon in there. It's an area that we want to sort of earmark as, this is forever going to be our place for memory of this. We're flying the 15-star flag, and we want it to be an everlasting memorial or at least moment of reflection to the founding of this village, which really occurred via the U.S. Army at that time. So, Main Street, it is from Hirschfield to Union our problem to deal with, not the state's problem. And I say that because forever and a day this village was content to say the state had to fix it. And then we asked the state, can we fix it? And will you help us? And they said yes. And that's where we're going. And along the way, we've done some stuff already. Thanks to Trustee Delano and Ken Custodian, our public works guys. We planted over 100 trees through this corridor to retreat all of Main Street last year. We also have our Windows app up and running. Our Windows app. Right? Freudian slip. It doesn't work on a Windows phone. But we said in Picture Main Street we wanted to do an app, but we didn't know how we would do it. And it turns out government doesn't have to do everything. And one of our business owners stepped in, and Home Run Creative built an app, and it's functioning. And you can get on there and you can look up a restaurant or make a reservation or check in to tell people you're in a certain place. And it's going to open up, sort of bringing us to this day and age where people are using apps like this for navigation through a village. We've got a lot of help as well. We've got a lot of promises, and a lot of people have been here working with us. Senators Rasmussen, some of the Walters have been here time and time again. They've helped us go to Albany. They've helped us kick off some of our events dealing with this. And of course, federally, Senator Schumer's been here. Senator Schumer's office asked me to relay that we're actively working on this grant day to day, following through with DOT. We put our grant applications in. Our TEP grant application, I'm told we scored in the top 2 regionally. That's up from 13, which was the case before Picture Main Street. So all of a sudden we're a regional priority, and that's good to see. That bodes well for us moving forward here with this Picture Main Street project. And so, what do you do when you have a plan? You don't let it sit on the shelf, right? So we took and did it live. We said, we're going to make this thing come alive. This fervor or movement that is Picture Main Street, we wanted it now, and we had to try it out. So, we planted, albeit temporary, rain gardens down on Spring Street. We striped crosswalks and bulbouts. We did the small things and painted signposts. With volunteers, we threw a block party on Main Street for the first time ever. And let people own the street, if for nothing more than drawing it with chalk, put a band in the center of the street, possibly embarrass the mayor for a moment. But people came out because this is our street, and we wanted that moment where we could just say, this is ours. Doesn't belong to 1-ton pieces of metal. And we're going to continue doing that block party. We're going to do this annually. Not the whole breadth of Picture Main Street Live, but the Main Street block party, we're going to keep doing it. So if that is smart growth in the first 5 points, then certainly preserving open space and developing and redeveloping our existing communities has to mean something. This is great. I don't, to this day, know who did this. We love it. It's the type of spirit that we see here in our community. It's the type of thing that we do with volunteers, but then we also get serious and proactively take on with our public works department. There's a lot of construction in parks this year. South Long's just finished our paving project in our pathway project. Glen Park got a massive overhaul and clean out of our stream and pond system. Of course, Main Evans. Of course, the area next to the impervious surface and stormwater runoff magnet that was the driveway next to the library got broken down. But we also did a good job maintaining our neighborhoods, doing our normal routine, winter cleanups, our fall cleanups. We also had our public works guys get out and build a new respite area, make our pools, make our existing infrastructure work for residents down in Harrison Park. Incentivizing local redevelopment, it's something that's tough. What it requires is a kind of an approach to looking at a community that's fully developed and saying, what does it take to redevelop here? A lot of it has to do with your approach in finding critical partners like a local IDA. And IDAs have been under fire in this area. I'm going to tell you that Amherst IDA has been very good to this village. They've helped incentivize projects that bigger IDAs like the county IDA might not touch, that are very vital to doing business on Main Street. Identifying marketing opportunities. We spent a long time this year and a lot of effort doing a feasibility study for business on Main Street in conjunction with the town of Amherst Planning Department and Amherst IDA. The 3 parties all put a lot of effort into that. And what we have out of there is a booklet that we can go to business owners and developers with and say, look, here's opportunity. And here's where the opportunity is specifically, and here's the type of opportunity. We took the time to identify that. Planning future land use. This is something that we have to, as a village, continue to do. And I'm going to get to a little bit from now what it is we're going to do in 2014. But smart use of abatements, smart use of incentivizing mixed use and smart growth, those are items that this village board takes very seriously. We're looking at areas right now, and I apologize if anybody's here from Darlene or International Shipping, but we have construction yards set within our residential area. And our community plan says, okay, this isn't going to last forever. What's it going to become? You need to plan that now, because otherwise you're not going to have any, not only have any grip on it, but you're going to let an opportunity maybe get away from you. This isn't a final, this is out of our community plan. We'll talk about opportunities. Do you realign a ball diamond, maybe? Do you redo a park? Do you make it so this whole area is set more on the train station, that you infill housing developments instead of construction yards? Those are items that we're coming to this year that we're going to be working on. So, I'd like to kind of recap here, but we still have a couple more to get through. Transportation choices. It turns out that if you talk about being more pedestrian-centric, and you make an effort to be more pedestrian-centric, and you point your activities at pedestrian, that people really want this. And our infrastructure, even though Main Street's crazy, promotes this. We have good infrastructure. We're not that sheepishly behind the rest of the world. And this is just a great example. I think I stole this from the Business Association website. But I think that it's a Saturday, sometime in July. It could be August. You know the feeling. You walk down to the farmers market, people are riding their bikes, and people are pushing their strollers. And this is the fervor and activity that we're seeing on Main Street with our new trees and people making decisions about leaving their car in their driveway and spending the day talking to their neighbors instead of worried about their commute back and forth. So, we get to the last 2 points. First, predictable and fair cost. We talked about form-based zoning and graphics-based zoning and how we're trying to promote that in our in our mixed-use district. And we hit on that during the public hearing. And we said, look, we accidentally excluded a couple of viable uses here, and we're going to change those. But we now need to do what Anaheim, California did, and get after some of our residential areas in the same set. Tell people, like, this is what we want you to develop. This is what we don't want you to develop. We want to de-emphasize the car. This one's set back long, but the graphics are pretty. And tell people, like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And if you want to develop this or you want to redevelop in this manner, by all means, let's do it. Let's stop creating stop relying on zoning that, in the words of our attorney, Chip Greco, only regulates side yard and front yard setbacks. So finally, stakeholder collaboration. If I can say anything about this village, it's that collaboration becomes fairly easy. It doesn't take a lot to draw people out. It takes merely putting a picnic table and throwing an event. It takes putting a little bit of effort in finding a fife and drum. Is our business association working together? It's our events, it's our arts and culture committee doing something that matters, that draws people. Is throwing a concert because you got a street closed, so why not? All these places, this is when we get to collaborate. When we get to have Trustee Yates talk about the importance of volunteers in our community. When we get to hold a meeting in front of the mill instead of in Village Hall for a night. And we get people to point and talk about Spring Street. When we get to have a fire juggler on a unicycle in the middle of Main Street. Typical village stuff, right? But I don't think I need to tell you too much about why this is important to what we do as a village. And how coming together matters. But nevertheless, This is our year of collaboration. And so finally, the Spring Street's a big deal. The Mill's a hot topic, right? It's been everything. It's been all over. Everybody wants to talk about it, question it. The question is, where's it going? What are we doing? This is what we want Spring Street to become. We said this it's on the cover of our community plan. This is where we're heading. And our job as a village board is to aim every decision that we have with Spring Street, with the mill, at getting this result. A B Street, a place for public. We have to finish repairing this. And this is the commitment that we've made. We have to do stuff like in-house tear down portions of that red building that were falling apart. But we need to create a village square, and we need to create a very B Street, a respite from Main Street that allows us some breath, a little bit of dimension to our business district. And we're going to do that by making it the most sophisticated street in our village line. We're going to take and catch 100% of our rainwater runoff from all those sites that are Spring Street, control it, and release it clean into our environment, into Glen Park, and into our creek. We're going to do that with the help of Buffalo Niagara River Keepers, Senator Schumer, New York State's environmental active groups. And what we hope is a land use that looks like this at some point. Dense and built, maybe de-emphasizing the vehicle. We know that we have a parking problem when we do this, yes. But our goal is to aim at Mill District. This is an old slide now, right back when we first started approaching the mill. That leaves the mill area itself and now starts to engage all Spring Street with rain gardens and modifications, giving our farmers market a permanent home. And then from there becomes something a lot more than just a Spring Street district. Connects to our parks, talks about being truly the heart of our village. So, 2014, the mill's occupied. It will be occupied next month. We got a 1 month head start on our mill. And we're going to do that. We've done it, as if you don't know, a short-term lease to Sweet Jenny's. And we think Sweet Jenny's is a great, viable, village-based business that's going to get into the mill and create an anchor for our retail, for our business district. We're going to continue to save taxpayers money by really adopting and promoting sort of a good sense of fiscal policy. The pocket park will be completed this year. We're going to work on rezoning to preserve our neighborhood character and our neighborhood charm. We're going to we're going to locally landmark 45 properties in our commercial district. That's an enormous amount of local landmarks. And that's going to give us the ability to protect those landmarks and make sure that we maintain that sense of village character that are buildings like Mule Skinners, First Bank of America, the key bank buildings. We're going to launch a new website. The Main Street construction, which is started, bits and pieces, is going to heat up a lot this year. And we're going to premiere some new winter events. And it's the corny tagline, we're all going to do it together because it takes a lot more than the 5 people sitting up here and then the associated 5 people in this first row. And when I look out into this crowd, I can tell you that almost all of you have been involved in one way, shape, or form. We got to do it. We got to just roll up our sleeves and continue to do what we've done this year, and next year is going to just build on it and carry more momentum. So with that, I'm done. And our intent is to open it up to questions for a while. I'm going to let Charlie Specht and the trustees handle most of the questions while I give my voice a break.
All right, who's got a question? Who's going to be the first one? Just a comment, maybe?
Fraser from 90 South Ellicott. What's the update of the Hawk signal? When will it be installed?
I promise no help. Yes, you want to take our question? The Hawk signal is being studied right now. Is that DOT doing traffic counts?
Yeah, we have not heard back from DOT yet what the traffic count is, so as with all signals, it's based on need, so we're determining the need. If we ever did find out what day it was, we would ask every village resident across the street that day. Isn't that chill to say, but we're still waiting for that.
I'm Ms. Sarah Mishler, and this is for Ken, the head of the village DPW. I am a member of the Meeting House Committee, and I would like to give Ken and his crew a great big thank you for all the wonderful things that you have done for us in the Meeting House. I especially thank you, as I am the one who opens and closes the Meeting House for weddings and certain other events. Anything I ask is always done quickly and with great skill. The added cabinets in the side room are wonderful. The painting done in parts of the Meeting House, the tile on the floor, updates in the bathroom are all done with skill and expertise. The paving of the parking lot, driveway, and marking of the parking spaces, great. The new cement walkways and pad by the front doors are wonderful. We really appreciate all your effort on our behalf. These new additions to the Meeting House will make it inviting, and many, many more people have been using this facility in the past year. We, and I am sure the people of the Village of Williamsville thank you for all you do to make the Meeting House a truly meeting house. Thank you.
Is there a question in there? You're welcome, everybody. My pleasure.
Chuck Akers, South Cayuga. I get a lot of comments from people I've talked to since I moved my office into the Village of Warrensville and really enjoy doing business out of the village. But a lot of comment about the time schedule. That, well, we had all this community plan 3 years ago, and the mill's been sitting there, we spent all the state money, things been sitting around, nothing's going on. This type of dialogue, which means we need to get some better PR to get people understand what's going on. But there's still the begging question here, and that we all know it takes time for the feds and the state and anyone else to get things done. But the basic question is, will the Spring Street project be done before the Bills have a Super Bowl?
I will just say that usually Senator Schumer doesn't show up unless he's delivering something. So I mean, we have every hope that that project will move forward, especially in 2014. So.
When will it be completed?
2016 would be, if we get the funding in 2014, we'll look at a year and a half, 2 years to deliver.
Sergio Fornestero, 5854 Main Street. I was wondering if there's a projected time for opening Sweet Jenny's, roughly, yet?
I think it's next week, or not, pardon me, week after next. So the very first week of December. Is that right? Okay, so December, what did I say? Yeah, and anyway, we're looking forward to them moving in there and getting things started. I believe all the preparation work has been completed, is that right? Okay. So it's moving along. You can go shopping there in 2 weeks. Or sooner? 2 weeks, okay. Who's next?
Currently, it's a month-to-month lease, and at any point, it can be broken by us or by Sweet Jenny's. Their commitment was to be in there for the holiday season, and we'll go from there at this point.
Great, thank you. Anyone? We put you to sleep, didn't we?
Disco or Discalo, what's the update on their commitment and their timeline? I know, I just read in the paper something about that they're still in the picture, but not quite sure what's happening.
As far as we know, they are still in the picture. We need to have some more meetings with them, obviously, but we as a board believe they're still in the picture.
And when you say they're in the picture, does that mean the design that they've developed, which would be adjacent to the mill?
I know they've gone through some design changes, and I don't have all the answers concerning those design changes right at the moment, so. Want to add to that?
So there's been some confusion, obviously. The question of the actual sale of the mill or the transfer of the mill to a private party has gotten caught up with what we were doing in the last few months, and there was a couple things. One, we have grant funding. There's $489,000 in grant funding that we're spending to shore up the property. So we set the scope of work. We hired Flynn Battaglia as our architect. And then caught up in the middle of there was this question about the mill being closed for so long. Is there some way someone could come in there and do something? And in the midst of that conversation, that was when Sweet Jenny's came forward and said, yes, we'd like to do that. So don't confuse Sweet Jenny's being in there on a short-term, month-to-month lease for the holidays. We have a year, probably, to 15 months of grant work to do. We cannot even think about transferring the property until we close out all of those grants. So it'll be a year from now, but we'll still be sitting here. Now, we may have an agreement maybe with Iscalo, maybe with Sweet Jenny's, maybe with some other party for the sale of the mill, but we can't transfer it until all of that grant money is spent and those grants are closed out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of confusion. I got all mixed up in there. We can't sell the mill right now. We're just trying to use it and begin to create that community space that we're talking about. The party on December 7th, I know some people are going to miss the bonfire, but we're trying to create that B Street that Mayor Culp was talking about. So we move the party after the tree light and move down there in a reindeer, and we're going to have Santa's going to be down there, and the fire department, and Sweet Jenny's will be open, and we're going to have all sorts of other events. So we're trying to like jumpstart this and get it moving and start to create that concept. But we got a little bit of work left to do.
And what about the painting of the outside? Is that still
That's in the scope of work.
2014?
Yep, 2014. Next 12 to 15 months. Yeah, they'll be painted. The windows will be done. There's a bunch of shoring up on the north wing that needs to be done.
And Flynn Battaglia, what are they actually on? Internal work?
Flynn Battaglia has been our architect now since 2011. They have done a number of historic preservation projects. They helped us set the scope of work that we're doing on the property.
Tom Fisher, just an idea about the winter activities, and something that I think is a relatively low cost, because I used to do it on my front yard, is when you're plowing the municipal lot behind Village Hall, is to haul giant piles of snow onto Island Park or any of the parks and just build mountains of snow. Because I know kids, I used to do with my snowblower and my mom just to attract kids in the neighborhood. And it just seems like it's a low cost thing. You got to dump the snow somewhere, frees up some extra parking spots, and just it's a fun thing to have a big pile of snow. Kids can just climb up. I don't know if there's any liability with that, but. Anyone else got any ideas?
Is there a goal or plan for the parking lot that's across the street from Totality on Garrison?
Maybe Garrison?
Yeah.
there's no plans at the current time.
Annette Herman, Thorn Creative Services. I just wanted to make an announcement about the December 7th. Everyone keeps sort of alluding to something cool going on December 7th, and that's Holiday in the Village. It's sponsored by the Williamsville Business Association in conjunction with all the activities going on in the village. There's going to be activities at least 20 different locations, free for the most part. I mean, like 99% free. Fun things to do all day long, trolley rides up and down the street, pictures with Santa Claus, horse-drawn wagon rides, face painting and cookie decorating, and shops are open, and I might add, the app will be launched, the Williamsville app that the mayor talked about, and there'll be a scavenger hunt associated with that, so it'll be a fun, high-tech way of celebrating the village and getting everybody to download the new app. So that's the Williamsville Business Association's Holiday in the Village all day long on December 7th. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to say that I've been involved with government officials probably since the early 70s, and I've never seen hard-working people since I've just gotten knowledgeable about the village officials here, their staff, and everything else. I want to congratulate you and wish you the best of luck for the oncoming years and happy holiday season.
If I can just, thank you, we appreciate that, but if we can, if I would like, personally, I know the board will as well, to reflect some of that, especially to the staff. A number of the things that have happened have been because of the DPW specifically. They built the pergolas. If you go in the bathroom here tonight, they did the tile work in there, they painted in here. There are all sorts of things, they planted the trees. We have a DPW department that is unlike anywhere else that I have ever seen, because they're willing to do things that most places, folks would say, no, I'm not going to do that. That might not be under my union job description or something like that. We have a group of DPW guys here who have made most of this happen. And they've done it with the help of a staff in Village Hall that have brought it all together. A lot of the stuff that we do is with grant funding. We couldn't afford to do all of this stuff if it wasn't for the grant funding that's brought in through what's happening, you know, in the village administrator, stuff like that, and the fact that the DPW is doing the work. So, I mean, plan for us, but really, when you see them out and about, please say thank you and stuff like that, and then busting, getting the leaves done, and water main breaks and all sorts of stuff, and that's on top of all of the stuff that we want them to do that adds value, you know, to the village. So, that's my two.
On a cannon, and was wondering if you ever followed up on cannon for the park.
Yes, yeah, we're in the process of following. It may be the right fit, it may not be, but it's an option right now. We're looking at a few different ones.
You know, the only other thing I'd like to comment on is that the other major portion of the village equation is the over 100 volunteers, a lot of you are right out there, that help make so many things happen here in the village. Just one small example, because we do so much, is the planting of trees since the '06 storm. Volunteers in the village have planted more trees in our 1 square mile than the town has been able to do with its 54 square miles. That's volunteers that did all that. It's just one of many things that all of you have been doing over the years that make all this other stuff happen. So thank you, too.
My name is Sunday Victoria, beer and owners kind of in the past years on First Field. Just out of curiosity, as far as the website's concerned,
Well, the website, we're just kind of getting started this year with our community development and working with the net as well, kind of getting a start. So we haven't formulated a complete plan of that because we don't want to roll out another website that's going to be like that. So we're still really studying what we exactly want to do, what we need to get out of it. So we're not quite there yet.
You want to help?